G'day there guys, friendly Aussie Markee, back at it again with another episode of r/LegalAdvice, would you believe it? Now guys, if you're new to the channel, feel free to subscribe and join my amazing community, especially the commenters down below. Now, with that out of the way, I'd love for you guys to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, and get ready for some non-cliffhanger content. It's great, and you've got the Markee seal of approval. This man/kid keeps flying a drone over my house with eggs attached to it that gets released on my property. I have a specific question regarding something that I want to do, and I need to know the legal aspect to it. Just to be clear, I am not asking how to break the law, I am asking what will happen if I take down his drone. That's all. Thanks a bunch. So the police officer told me he can't go and knock on every house in the neighborhood investigating if they're the ones doing this. Which is understandable, I guess, and that I have to know where the drone comes from first for him to do anything. Honestly, at this point I want to buy anything and take the drone out with it when it comes on my property again. If the kid sues for the cost of the drone, then I'm willing to pay. This of course will reveal his identity, so I can countersue, right? I'm sure he's breaking a lot of laws. Thing is, I want to make sure that he can't sue for any ridiculous emotional distress or any other crap he might claim, but only for the cost of the drone. Location of the bot, OH. Ohio, I'm pretty sure. Edit, follow-up question, the drone has a camera. If I end up being on YouTube, can I sue him for that? Edit 2, taking out his drone is not an option now, as you pointed out it might be a felony. Carissa36 says, it's true that the police officer can't do it, but nothing is stopping you from doing this. Like you, I think this is probably a kid, and his parents probably don't know what he's doing. It's worth a walk around the neighborhood knocking on doors some Saturday. Odds are good some neighbors know who owns a drone, and that kid's parents won't be pleased with your visit. Becca13 says, I had a police officer come to my door asking if I had any knowledge of who might be leaving bags of dog poop on a neighbor's porch, so the cops could certainly ask around about the drone and just don't care to. I think OP should ask around the neighborhood. Whoever did this is pretty certain to have annoyed someone else too, and someone will know who it is. And you'll be pleased to hear. Update. This man/kid keeps flying the drone over, and they want to know the legal aspects to this. I would like to thank you guys for the help and all the creative ideas you have proposed in the original thread. Sorry for not updating you right away, as I was really impacted by the death of a very close person in my family. So here's what's happened. I liked one of the comments here to where it said to see if anyone is flying drones as a hobby willing to use his drone for me for $1,000 instead of paying for a whole new drone. Figured just like you guys said, it would make someone's day to fly a drone as a hobby and also get paid. So I hired a guy, which I'll call him Frank, just to be frank. After waiting for 3 days at my house every morning, the drone finally flew to us. But apparently, when the other kid saw the other drone take off, he went crazy and tried to hit it or take it down, which he did, which resulted in the kid's drone and Frank's drone both to go down broken on the ground. A few minutes later, this kid came running to the house, whom I recognized lives a couple of blocks away, and started whining about how we flew our drone into his and it crashed, blah blah blah. We went and spoke to his dad and showed him all the footage and explained all the crap his son has caused. Shockingly, he was completely understanding. He told me he would put me through one of his lawyers so that they could offer both Frank and I a settlement if I agree not to sue. I called my lawyer and we all met a week later, and he reimbursed Frank for his drone plus way more money than I would have ever paid him. He also wrote me a check for what his son has caused him under the condition that I won't pursue any legal action. It was a happy ending, and I was quite shocked of his father's reaction and his willingness to pay for everything his son has caused. But I must admit that I feel sad knowing that his dad is definitely the one enabling him to do so. Never have I felt his dad was mad about anything that his son did. While we were there discussing what happened, his dad received a phone call, and then shortly after ending it, he started telling his son what the other party was saying, and they both started making jokes about the caller. So the whole thing made me feel like his dad was like, meh, just another day. My son caused damage, and I'll just have to pay those people for this to all go away. That's what happens when you have screw you money. I wish I had that kind of money. And our next story. School wants my son's Facebook password and email. Also wants us to hand over any phone or computer that he's had access to in the last year. What the hell? Florida. So my son is 15. Today I received a phone call from the school telling me that they are doing an investigation into a series of very serious incidents that happened last year, and they would like to have the password for my son's Facebook account. Also asking me to disable two-step verification if his account has it. They also said it would really be a great help if I hand over any phones, tablets, or computers that my son has had access to in the last year, removing any passcode or login restriction. I was shocked about hearing this. I asked about the incident, and I was told that they can't tell me since it doesn't directly concern my son. That they only seek to see this if there had been any mention of in the communications that my son has had with his friends, which might help them uncover some information. I declined, told them that I'm happy to talk to them about the incident in person if it concerns my son, but other than that, this is very unreasonable, and really none of our business. I was told something along the lines of, I strongly recommend you help us. This is a very serious issue for a few other students, and to be honest, with your refusal will have some consequences. I'm mostly talking about your son's future at the school and in the coming school year, but also potentially legally. I really hope you cooperate for all of our sake. I told her to send us what they want in writing. She said that she hopes we're not trying to make this difficult, as lives are on the line here. I insisted that I want it for my records. She said they might do that. So my question is, WTF mate? They can't be serious about this. My instinct is to get a lawyer if we received anything in writing, but really what I'm wondering about is how far can they go in this so-called investigation? Let's say when school starts, my son takes a phone or iPad to school. Can they confiscate and look through it? Can they force him to reveal the passcode to it or force him to use his fingerprint to unlock? How do I make sure they just can't invade our privacy like that? If there were lives on the line, you should be contacted by police with a warrant. That's what I thought as well. Just throwing this out there, is it possible you were speaking to someone lying about being school staff? Totally. Or someone on the staff running a scam. What happens and who would pay if the devices went missing and got damaged? Personal information was misused for fraud? At the least, the person OP was talking to has no clue what they're doing, and they're making the school vulnerable to liability issues. Very true. Update. School wants my son's Facebook password and email. Also wants us to hand over any phone or computer that he has had access to in the last year. What the hell, mate? Florida. So I went to school and asked what was going on. I did that to both confirm that the call was genuine and to see why they want to violate my son and our family's privacy on such a massive scale. First, the call was genuine and it wasn't a scam. Second, the principal explained the situation to me. It had to do with another student who attempted suicide because of bullying during the summer. Thank goodness she is now alright, and has since moved to another school. But this was part of the school's investigation to figure out how it happened. When I asked how is it any of my son's business, they said they've seen them hang out together, and while they don't think my son was involved in the bullying himself, they'd like to read his conversations with her, because she may have confided in him about the students involved in bullying. I asked why this information wasn't obtained from the parents of the student. The answer was that they weren't willing to work with the school about it, and she had left so they had no power, strange use of words in this situation, over them. I told them to leave my son out of this witch hunt, and the way they're speaking to us, they sound like they're trying to bully us into helping their anti-bullying investigation, which is troubling and absurd. I told them that if they ever approach my son or try to take his phone or anything by force or threat, I'm going to make a big deal out of this, talk to the superintendent, and hire a lawyer. Up until this day, they haven't said or done a thing. I talked to my son about the girl and what happened to her. He knew her and they had some mutual friends, but they weren't exactly friends, and he wasn't aware of her suicide attempt. He only knew that she had left the school. He showed me their conversation, and there wasn't much there except talking about movies and TV shows. In short, They backed off after I made sure they understood that I won't take any harassment or violation of our privacy lightly. Small edit. Thanks for the couple of who messaged me the mistake. Someone messaged me and asked me if the parents of the girl had allowed the school to share the suicide news with me. I will trying to talk to them to make sure. They deserve to know if the school is not respecting their privacy. It's something they seem to be good at. And our next post is by user LAThrowaway3131, titled, "Old co-workers are telling me my old boss talks to them about all the issues I'm having. Found out my therapist is my old boss's husband. MN." So this one is flared as healthcare law, including HIPAA, as you guys really pointed out in that one episode about HIPAA. It's not HIPAA. Anyway, I started seeing a therapist a couple of months ago. Nothing wild. Just general depression, winter weather getting to me, etc. It's been very helpful until recently. In the last few days, 2 of my old co-workers called me to say my old boss was saying things like, "She basically hates herself now. I heard she's not doing well. Really depressed." These were phone calls, and I didn't record anything because it was so unexpected. My old boss fired me in June of 2017. We didn't get along, general underperformance, no misconduct, just obviously didn't leave on great terms. At first, I thought it might be a friend of mine divulging things to another friend in the industry, but then after looking up said old boss, I see that her husband is my therapist. Very common last name, so I'd never realized they were related. I realized this is obviously problematic with the therapist, but I'm not sure what to do about it. He practices out of a leased single office space, so there's no overarching practice management/administration to report to. I also don't know if what my old boss is saying is getting into legal issues, or if it's just, well, rude. I still live in the same city and work the same type of job, in a rather small/close-knit industry. So on one hand, I'm worried about word traveling around our small community, but on the other, I'm worried about bad blood if I make too much of a fuss. Help? Edit. Now I'm feeling reasonably confident about where to start with the therapist. Thank you. However, I feel completely lost about what to do about my old boss. Contact HR at the old employer? Hope it just dies down? At this point, I have no proof that I could show, just saying I got phone calls, and I don't really want to pit my old co-workers against their boss if that can be avoided. Alana Monster says, "You can lodge an ethical complaint against his license to practice psychology. It is absolutely a violation, and while you may not have known that your boss and therapist were married, your therapist may have, which is another ethics violation." Edit, just for edification, here are the ethics violations within your situation so far. 1. Referring to you by your name or other identifying details to someone not directly involved in your care. 2. Acknowledging you as a patient in general. Therapists should, as a rule, pretend they don't know who you are outside of the clinic. 3. Disclosing the details of your mental health to anyone outside of the clinic. 4. Not immediately recusing themselves from giving you services once they knew about the connection between you and their spouse. And now we have an update on that last post. Old post summary. My old boss was telling my old team that I was having a ton of issues. I found out my therapist is her husband, but I didn't know how she was finding this out / to what degree each person was doing bad stuff. New development summary. There's still a lot of slow / bureaucratic stuff going on, but the most satisfying news is that my therapist is no longer practicing. I even saw the space he practiced out of listed as for sale on a real estate website, while doing my own house hunting. New developments continued. Therapist was chatting about a client, me, to his wife, my old boss, that it seemed he really didn't know was his wife's old employee. Large company, close-knit, but not minuscule industry. I have a very peculiar family dynamic, so I think he talked about that. However, enough bits and pieces of identifying information came up that she suspected it was me. Unbeknownst to him, she found my paper records in his office and dug through them, then thought it was a great idea to tell my old co-workers that I was depressed and had family issues. Neat. One of my co-workers put in her 2 weeks because of a relocating spouse shortly after, then agreed to write a formal statement of what she heard, which also helped a lot. Understandably, no one else was willing to, because the company already laid off so many people in the last year. Resolution in process. Therapist seems to be less in the wrong than I thought he was, though still in the wrong. Old boss is still awful. Therapist likely to receive some sort of reprimanding for both talking to his wife about me in that level of detail, as well as insecure record keeping. I don't know if he will practice again. And finally, thank you all. You listening to this story, you were a huge help and a confidence boost that me complaining about this would actually get it somewhere and not just create more stress in my life. It's apparently led to a ton of drama at my old workplace, which has been sort of pleasant to hear updates about from afar. Glad to not be there anymore. I also found a new therapist who's great, and she's really helped validate that the old guy and his wife was one bad egg in a sea of otherwise well-meaning people. And our last post is quite a heavy one, so be prepared for this. My husband is being accused of sexual abuse by our daughter. I'm new to Reddit. My son encouraged me to seek feedback here, although he didn't want to discuss this with me in person. We are in Washington State. My husband was recently accused of abuse by our younger adult daughter. She graduated from a college a short while ago and is now living with friends out of state. She told me, and I immediately told my husband. I'm horrified and don't know how she could say such a thing, and so is my husband. To my knowledge, she hasn't told any authorities, but is there any way I can prevent her from doing so if she wants to? Can I preemptively warn them? She is completely fine, not traumatized at all. She was troubled as a teenager, cutting, but she has been over that for years. I absolutely know my husband would never do that, and I don't know why she would suddenly lie about something like this. Any input's welcome. Whiskey Sour Pussycat says, you cannot stop someone from making a report on sexual abuse. You can go to the police, but it would be unwise. Have you considered why your son is unwilling to discuss this with you? OP says, I don't know why, but I know he's discussing things with his sister. When I told him, he already knew. He probably knows she's telling the truth. Update. I am the mother who disbelieved her daughter's abuse. More than a year ago, I posted a message here on the advice of my son. I'm not sure how to link it, but you can view my post history. Location is Washington. My daughter disclosed abuse to me from my now ex-husband, and in shock, I made every mistake possible. Not only did I doubt her, I was convinced she was lying. There is no excuse, but my children are better than I deserve. I knew immediately that I had to reevaluate. The day after I first posted, I rented a room away from my husband. I called my daughter on the phone, and we spoke for hours. We both cried and apologized. If we were in the same city, I would have thrown myself on my knees. I told her I loved her, and she said, I know, I love you too. She asked me to see a therapist, and I agreed. I also called my son and thanked him for being there for his sister when her own mother was not. My child actually suggested this update, although they understandably want details about legal proceedings to be kept private. I still feel both disgust for myself and awe that I have their forgiveness and love, despite how I failed them both. But we have worked through so much pain, and we are a family. Thank you for your honesty and being the first to open my eyes. Well, I'm glad that got resolved, because that is a really sticky situation. Anyway guys, if you enjoyed these series of posts, tell me what you thought of it down in the description below. As always, I'm keen to hear from you, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.